beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Sessions with Koren. Today, we're diving into a powerful but sometimes uncomfortable topic. We're going to be talking about sex. We're going to look at the silence and the shame. For generations, many of us grew up in cultures, homes, and churches where sex was rarely discussed. Or if it was, it came with silence, fear, or shame. But what does that mean for us? How do we see ourselves, our relationships, and how do we guide our children on the topic of sex today? Joining me for this important conversation is Dion Granum, a social worker and certified sexologist who brings both professional expertise and real-world insights to the subject. Together, we'll explore how culture, religion, and family shape the way we learn or don't learn about sex, and what we can do to break cycles of silence while embracing healthier, more empowering views of sexuality. Stay with us, and we'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Sessions with Koren. Joining me today is Dion Granum. Dion is a certified sexologist and a social worker who enjoys working with persons. She brings her professional expertise and real-world experiences to our conversation today. Dion, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
So, see, we're on the topic. Can we sing the song?
Which song? Let's talk about sex, baby.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good times. Anyway, we're not singing today. We'll sing another time. But really and truly, though, to start, in a lot of Caribbean homes, sex is considered a taboo topic. How does our culture and our religious practices lead to that, to sex being so taboo?
Well, because in the Caribbean and Antigua, more specifically, we are a Christian society. So the idea of talking about sex is, how dare you? What are you talking about? And so our young people grow up thinking, I can't talk about sex. We don't discuss the intricacies of it, or body shaming is a big thing. Because we're a Christian society. How dare we talk about sex?
Okay, yes, that happens. And but sex was created by God.
Yes.
So sometimes it gets a little confusing for people. If sex was created by God, then why is such a shame and silence surrounding it? What are some of the messages that we pass on to the younger generation? Harmful. What are some of the harmful messages that we pass down as it relates to sex?
Well, one of the things that we pass down is body shaming. We don't allow persons, our young people, to feel comfortable with themselves. We are also not a society that encourages education where sex is concerned, because you can only have sex when you're married. And that is ideal, but we have a general idea or a belief that your worth, your virginity is tied to your worth. And because of that, a lot of our young women especially tend to fall back, or they hide things when things are happening. They get pregnant and they hide it. They have medical issues and they hide it, because that idea of speaking freely where sex is concerned isn't there. And so they lose, or they don't get the kind of attention or treatment that they would need.
You're right about that. A lot of the times, I remember when you see young persons with issues, we notice that they did not have the correct education because they weren't taught at home. And so when sometimes you meet a teenager who becomes pregnant and you ask them, like, why did you make this choice? They were like, but I did not know this was going to happen. Dion, you're the mother of a young girl. At what age do you think it's appropriate for you to start teaching her about sex?
I don't want to put an age on it, but when they start showing curiosity, they start asking questions, don't shy away from answering the questions. As a mother and as parents, when we start shying away from answering the questions, they start looking elsewhere for answers. And they're going to get the answers either from us, the good, wholesome ones, or on the street, at school, on the internet, where there's bad information, misleading information, and that leads down a path of almost no return sometimes.
Okay, I understand. Now, what about boys? Who should educate boys about sex? Should it be the fathers who have the same equipment? Or should it be the mothers who want to teach them, how they should treat a female? Who should really educate young boys?
Ideally, both, because there are different perspectives from both parents. For a boy, mommy will teach you how to treat a young lady, how to speak to girls, what touching, no touching. Daddy will also teach the same things, but maybe in a more masculine way where he can understand it a little better. So I do believe that both parents are important. Unfortunately, we do have some single parent households. And so it means that we are unable to, get that whole holistic approach when we're raising our young men and our young women. But I do believe that if we stop having this taboo idea about sex, then it won't be that hard for us to teach them in the right way.
Okay. Well, what role do churches play, though? I know they teach abstinence a lot until marriage. Do you think abstinence is still relevant in this day and age?
I think abstinence is still relevant in this day and age. Abstinence helps to prevent teenage pregnancies. And we want to be able to prevent that so that our young women and our young men can have the future that they envisioned when they were children. Now, if you're getting pregnant as a teenager and you're not able to finish school, or you're now focused on being a parent, then you have less chances of really progressing the way you would like to. You have to readjust everything. And I'm not saying it's not possible to accomplish your goals after you get pregnant, but it does make it a little more difficult, both for the males and the females, because now the boys have to stay home and be parents or go to work and drop out of school. Young ladies are staying home to be mothers, or they have to find work now because the family isn't able to financially or emotionally support them in the way they would need it. So it's everyone.
Okay. All right. You said something there I don't quite agree with. Right? We talked about abstinence. You said it's ideal, especially for young people. It affects their dreams. But Dion, the boys are not treated the same as the girls. First of all, when a girl becomes pregnant, she shows, it's clear. Oftentimes she's, what do you call it, excommunicated or read out of the church.
True.
She oftentimes has to leave school. I don't remember seeing a young man being read out of the church. I don't remember seeing a young man being made to leave school. Is that a double standard?
It is a double standard. It's not a good double standard at all. It's really a really bad one, because it's almost telling us that women get persecuted more for things like these.
Yes.
And it's also encouraging young men and men to think that it's normal to do the things that they do, or to engage in sexual activity, to treat women badly. This creates an uneven dynamic in our society, because the young men have a sense of dominance.
Yes.
Because I don't have to stop school. I don't have to do anything. Few times you would find where a mother of a male would say, hey, you need to go and take care of your responsibilities, because you put yourself in this position. I believe if we had more accountability, then we might be able to see a little more happen where our young men are concerned. But I believe we are making strides. From 10 years ago, when I was younger, or when I was in school 30 years ago, 20 years ago, it's a lot different now. We are seeing more parents saying, you have a responsibility, you need to take care of it.
Okay, well, I'm glad you touched on that, because men do need to take responsibility too. So we looked a little bit at the church, but culturally, in our society, if a woman has been with a few persons and a man exhibits the very same behavior in the village, what are some of the labels they give the women versus how they see the men? Is there equal playing field in how we're referred to when we've been known to have, been around a little bit?
Definitely not an even playing field. The man is the don, yeah, shutter. You're the
Why you
king.
know those words? You're not supposed to know those words.
Much older than you think. So, he gets the respect of his peers because he's done it. But a woman is seen as a whore, a slut, the words that you don't want to have to call, and she's everything. And they've done the same thing. She's has multiple partners, he's had multiple partners. But society does put a lot more of the responsibility of being wholesome on our female members of our society. And especially for young women, again, it falls back on them. And because we are such a Christian society, there's not that opportunity for them to really... We don't talk about the sex and the things that affects them where sex is concerned, the body shaming, the hidden pregnancies and all these things, because what are we talking about? God doesn't want us to talk about that. You know, you're a bad
Okay.
person if you talk about sex or things like. I remember going to school and we didn't talk about sex. You didn't hear people mentioning sex. You didn't walk on the streets and hear things about sex. Now, though, I've walked through the streets and I've heard our young people a little more open with the topic of sex. Definitely not in the way that they need to be having these conversations, but we're making progress.
Okay, I understand that. And education brings with it a certain level of openness because when something is hidden and you're not sure what happens, you get involved and all kinds of things can happen. But when you know, if I have sex, I can get an STD, I can become HIV positive. It's not so, nobody can tell you, oh, if you only do it this way, or if we go upside down, or do it sideways, or you drink a hot Vitamalt after, that wouldn't happen to you. But you have your own knowledge, and we should empower our young ladies to be educated and have some control.
I
All
agree.
right? And as we're on the subject of education, though, some young persons have parents. And you establish that a parent should be the one that teaches a boy or a girl. So parents, remember that. Teach your girls and teach your boys about sex. What about social media? What role does social media play in education? And if a parent doesn't do it, what sort of messages could our children, our youth be getting about sex and sexual relations from social media?
So social media is a two-edged sword. On one
Okay.
hand, you can have good information coming out of it, good resources. But on the other hand, especially if you don't have the reinforcement of the parent, then you get negative information coming out of it. Sex becomes performative rather than, more of an opportunity for wholesome engagement. And so because of that, we find that there needs to be a balance. We need to see a balance. And as parents, educators in schools, if we have the topic surrounding sex maybe a little more openly, and there are mixed feelings on that, our young people won't be so tempted to go to the wrong places to get information. They won't go to social media because they're getting it where they know, hey, this information is good. But I do believe personally that in schools, when we discuss the topic of sex, it's guarded. And I can understand that. But if you listen to the young people speak about sex when they're not at school, they know a lot more than you're teaching them at school. So we need to meet them at their level in a way that they can understand, but without forcing it or making it difficult for a child who's never been exposed to the topic of sex to understand, so that there's that equal balance between, I know about sex and I don't know about sex.
All right. So you're saying just teaching the biology of it with the diagrams of the male reproductive organs and the female reproductive organs, that's not enough.
That is not enough.
We need to go deeper.
Yes.
All right.
Because they're going deeper. Whether we like it or not, they're going deeper. So we have to meet them.
So educators have to move with the times.
Yes.
All right. So you're saying the church should talk about it, parents should talk about it, schools should talk about it. Am I missing anybody, any other groups?
Community
Groups and the healthcare professionals?
Yes.
What can they do in
because,
terms of?
there are lots of clubs for children doing things, sports clubs. Incorporate it in some form of your training so that there's that education. You have clubs that are co-ed, boys and girls playing together. They need to be able to understand that the boundaries related to sex, the touching, the feeling, what is allowed, what is not allowed. If we're playing a contact sport and I have to touch you, then I need to be mindful of how I'm touching the person, the female or the male, so that there's no question of, well, was that inappropriate? And again, it goes back to the education. If our children know what is inappropriate and what is not appropriate, then if you're touched inappropriately in a contact sport, you'll know, okay, yeah, that was definitely inappropriate.
I love that.
Yeah, as opposed to, I'm not sure what just happened. And we hear a lot about sports and inappropriate touches, so it really needs to be an all-around approach.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm really glad you brought that up. We need to coaches, if you're working with males and females, teach them about what is appropriate, what is not appropriate, especially as it relates to contact sports. I'm really, really glad you brought that up. On the topic of our young persons, again, we always have to talk about our youth.
Yes.
When I see youth run away from home, and I go on Facebook, and I look at the comments, like if there are 300 comments, 200 persons are saying, oh, we're worried about her for she going to look something. For young persons running away from home, and the public needs to understand this, is sex a push factor, like they're running to get it, or is it a pull factor? Are they going because of sex, or do they happen to be out there and end up becoming sexually active? I don't know if I'm asking it in a way you understand, but is sex a push or a pull factor for our young people who run away from home on a repeated basis? I mean, based on all the comments you see on Facebook from people.
It's both. It's a push
Okay.
and a pull factor. It's a push in that they are running to feel loved, to feel
Okay.
appreciated, to feel wanted, and the persons that they're running to give them that. Or well, albeit it's a brief moment sometimes or a brief experience, it's just so that they can feel that love or connection that they're not getting at home. The other aspect of that is that they're running away from what's happening at home, the trauma, the sexual abuse, the aggression, the all of that negativity. They're running away from it. So there are times when our young women run away from home because they don't want what's happening at home.
Okay.
I don't want to be touched. I don't want my uncle to touch me. And sometimes they're running away from home to go where they feel loved, where somebody holds them and says, you're beautiful and I love you. And sometimes because they're not hearing that at home, they're going to go where they can find it. We tend, as human beings, we go where we feel happiest.
Yes, absolutely. But then sex becomes part of the
Yes.
package, and that creates a whole other ball game. So that tells me that we need to create safe spaces.
Yes, we do.
We need to create safe spaces for our youth. So if something is happening to them at home in terms of sexual abuse, molestation, they need to be able to address that healthy. Well, Dion, since you're on the topic, look into the camera and tell our young persons who are feeling like they're being abused sexually. It could be somebody who's a family member or not, inside, outside. Tell them where they can go and what kind of help. Just say something to them.
Well, a lot of our young people, well, we can go to the gender affairs. They handle and help young people who would have experienced sexual violence. Women Against Rape or WAR, headed by Nurse Alexandrina Wong. That's also a very safe space with exceptional expertise. They have an advocates group that is there to assist, to guide. The hospital, you can go there. There's a social services department there. And there are guidance counselors within the Ministry of Education that assist our young people when they're experiencing difficult issues that include things of like sex.
Okay, thank you so much for that. It's always we talking about education, so we have to educate.
Yes.
Something else I wanted to ask you. Tell us a little bit about sexual predators online, because we've heard stories where our children as young as 8 and 9 are targeted sexually on Instagram, on other sites. Speak to us about that. How can parents minimize their children having that? How can we address that, Dion?
So I have a young daughter, and she likes social media. She likes to watch YouTube, and she likes to look at the different videos. And one of the rules that we have is anything that you're going to post, if you feel like you want to post something, mommy has to approve it first. Her account is linked to mine. So she can't do anything without me knowing. She can't look at a video without me knowing because I'm there to guide. And as parents, we need to be a little more involved in our children's activities. So they have a tablet, no problem. But you have to know what's happening on that tablet. There's nothing my daughter does on her tablet and I don't know. The other day she put up a picture on her WhatsApp status and I looked at it and I don't like this. And immediately I said, remove it. And she removed it because she knows that mommy's guiding her in the best direction. We have to be able to have relationships with our children so that they are comfortable speaking to us about anything that's happening. So if someone was to approach her, recently, someone sent her, a girl sent her a message saying, hi, I'm from, I don't remember which country it was. And she came, mommy, look at this. So I
Red
looked at
flag,
it.
red
Yeah.
flag, red flag.
I said, okay, well, don't respond. You can block them. We're going to block them. And we blocked. And most of the times before I look at her chat history, she comes and she says, this is what's happening. A few months ago, there was an issue in her class with the back and forth WhatsApping between two children. I knew before other parents were able to say something, I knew because
Okay.
I have that relationship with my child. You have to guide, you have to listen. If they come to you and say, hey, this is happening, don't just shun them. Don't say, I can't deal with you now. Listen right away, explore what's happening with them so that you can guide them. So that when the sexual predator goes online and says, hi, pretty girl, how are you? Why are you calling me pretty girl? You don't know me.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. So that relationship is important.
Yes.
Paying attention, staying alert, educating them, not with shame, like you're not to do this, but in terms of being proactive and protecting themselves, and also giving them the compliment so when somebody else does it doesn't mean anything
Yes.
because they get it at home. So that's really, really important because it's rampant.
Yes, it is.
All right, Dion, I have one last question for you. Body count.
That's none
We're
of your
talking about
business.
sex, we're talking about the silence, the shame, the secrecy. Is it appropriate? You're shaking your head. I don't do non-verbal
I
communication.
can't imagine
Can
what
you let
that
me finish
question
my
is going to go
question?
to.
Is it appropriate for somebody entering into a relationship, considering our cultural context in Antigua and Barbuda, and a small space in which we live? Everybody is like cousins to everybody in who grew up. For you to be asking somebody, tell me all who you were with before me and how many you were with before me. We say we don't want silence with sex. So is this a way to be open? Is it okay to ask someone their body count?
Some questions are okay and some questions are not.
Okay
That is
then.
not an okay question. That
All
is
right.
not a question that you deserve an answer to. And here's why. Because I'm going to tell you my body count is 15. And every time we have an argument, you're going to decide to remind me that I have a body count of 15.
Yes.
And that's going to create an issue in our relationship because it means that you don't trust me or you're jealous or something else is going on. And we don't need that level of toxicity in our relationships. So no, don't ask anybody their body count. And if you are asked a body count, you can respectfully decline to answer. It's not that your body count is high or low. It's just that it's really none of anybody's business but yours.
Yes, absolutely. Boundary setting is important.
Yes.
Dion, thank you so much. As a certified sexologist, you've answered our questions. I know our listeners will want you to come back again because there's no end to what we can talk about when it comes to sex, and we're keeping it focused. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, more on Sessions with Koren after the break.
Thank you.
As we close today's interesting conversation, here are 5 key insights to reflect on. Each one highlights why open dialogue matters and how we can better support our young people in understanding themselves and others. Silence creates confusion. Silence around sex creates confusion, shame, and fear that can last right into adulthood. Families and faith shape beliefs. Our families and our faith-based communities often shape early beliefs about sex, sometimes positively and sometimes negatively. Breaking cycles at home starts with open, honest, and age-appropriate conversations. Our young people need guidance to navigate the overwhelming influence of social media and peers. If we don't teach them the right thing, they can learn the wrong things elsewhere. Healthy conversations about sex are really conversations about dignity, respect, and self-worth. Welcome back to Sessions with Koren. Time now for your golden nugget. Sex is not just about the physical, it's about identity, relationships, and respect. When we replace silence and shame with truth and love, we open the door for healing and wholeness. Thanks for tuning into Sessions with Koren. Remember, creating space for open and honest conversations helps to break the cycles of silence and build a healthier future for all of us. Catch up on past episodes on YouTube and join us next week for another conversation that inspires and empowers. Until then, stay grounded, stay growing, and stay you. See you next time.